serum? Can't help you now, stud. Nice shot.
Some mother always trying to ice skate uphill.
Welcome to Franchise Killer, a podcast where we pick movie franchises or wannabe franchises, review them film by film, and see where things went wrong. Or right. I'm Reese. To my left is...
I'm David.
And further off to my left...
Irina.
And across from me...
Blade.
Also known as...
Noah.
And off in a distant land, we have...
AJ.
Alright, and today we're talking about... Blade, film that came out in 1998, directed by Stephen Norrington. Does that name ring a bell, guys?
Oh,
Norrington.
I don't know.
Yeah, Pirates.
Captain.
Commodore.
Oh.
League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Yes. We've covered one of his films already, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. He also directed Death Machine, as I mentioned, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, and The Last Minute. And he, in our League of Extraordinary Gentlemen episode, he was known to, or he said he was going to quit filmmaking forever because of how stressful of an experience that movie was.
That's so sad.
And his feuding with Sean Connery.
I was going to say it was mainly Sean Connery. That was the issue. No
Sean
Sean Connery
Connery
in this
killed
movie.
him.
Yep. Blade stars Wesley Snipes. This will be an interesting one. Probably wrong pronunciation, but I'm going to go for it. Nabushe Wright, and that's an N apostrophe B-U-S-H-E W-R-I-G-H-T. So
I think you got the right.
Thanks. Stephen Dorff, Chris Christopherson, Donal Logue, Udo Kier, Sanaa Lathan, and Arlie Jover. That's a lot of
More bizarre names than I would have
It's like
expected
a lot of like
from
word
this movie.
salad names.
Yeah.
They're just like
We need like a just a tick for each one.
no, it sounds like that Google autofill text
yes.
where it's just like, here's a bunch of names that are made up.
Chris Christopherson. That'll work.
No, he's actually
Yeah,
well
the
known.
easiest one. No, I know.
No, everyone after him is just like, it's a crapshoot. The movie was written by David S. Goyer, who's no stranger to writing comic book movies, and in some cases directing. He actually directed or wrote The Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises, I believe. But he's kind of a polarizing writer. There's a lot of people that think he kind of was the reason that Batman v Superman was bad.
Was he a writer on that one?
Yeah, he was a writer on that one.
Just one of them?
I don't know. I think he did Man of Steel and Batman v
I was
Superman.
going to say, he would have had to have had a lot of pull to ruin an entire movie.
Yeah,
Wait,
well,
what's your mom's name? Martha.
yeah. I think that was directly him. You can thank him for
He
that.
wrote that script.
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
And this movie was based off of the Marvel character of the same name, Blade, written by Mark Wolfman, I want to say.
Yeah.
Wolfman?
Yeah.
Marv.
Wolfman.
He's
Mar-
gonna run
I think
a
it's
business.
Marv.
Marv Wolfman.
Marv.
Anyway, on this podcast, we first go over our thoughts on the film before revisiting it for the episode. Then we dive into the story, break it down bit by bit, and talk about the more significant moments. Then, towards the end of the show, we give our brief reviews and numbered scores, along with an analysis on the health of the franchise and whether or not this film hurt it. So, you guys, had y'all seen Blade before this episode? Irina?
Yes, I had. I'm pretty sure the first time I saw it, I hadn't sat down and watched it all the way through. It was just something kind of playing in the background. But the time that I did sit down and actually watch it, I wasn't sitting down at all, actually. Sometimes I like to throw movies like this on while I'm working out. So there was this phase where I think it was another October where I was just like, oh, Blade is on Netflix. I'm going to put that on. And while I was working out, and I also watched, I think, a lot of the Resident Evil movies.
Underworlds.
And Underworld.
I could just see you working out while he's at one of those montage fighting scenes. The music's like, doom, doom, and you're like, time for a hit
It gets
workout.
you pumped. I think for me, it's better than listening to music. I don't know.
Yeah.
I could see this movie doing that.
How about you, David?
Yeah, in a similar manner, I grew up seeing this around. I never actually sat down to watch the whole thing. I actually remember the first time I saw it on TV. Young David, similar to current David, not a huge fan of scary things. And I was over at my friend's house. It was like 2 o'clock in the morning. We were in the basement, and he had a channel on TV. And Blade ended up coming on, and everyone else fell asleep. And I remember seeing him fighting vampires. I'm like, oh, this is over the David limit. I can't handle this.
I mean,
I
you didn't
can't
seem to
handle
have a
things.
problem with Yetis.
Seems like you also can't handle talking in the first person.
Yeah.
I guess David's just
we
can't
That was
talk
a whole
in-
segment of just referring to yourself as David, wasn't it?
We little David could not handle.
I never thought about
The
the fact that I've been
vampire
talking
movies.
in the third person.
David
this whole time.
hungry.
It was like a solid 2 minutes of talking in third
David,
person.
Hey,
David's
that's how you do it. I'm not going to criticize it.
You know what? Let me be me.
Yeah, I'm letting you be you. I was just pointing it out.
But you also have to be you.
Yeah, no, I can't. I'm the only one who can't be me.
How about you, Noah?
I don't remember when I saw this, but I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's about it.
I get that.
and you, AJ.
So I guess I watched the wrong Black Immortal comic book superhero movie.
Wait.
What'd you watch, AJ?
Spawn?
Spawn.
God, I gotta look that up.
It's pretty close. Actually, you're prior.
Do you not know what Spawn is, David?
No, I don't actually.
Ooh, voice crack.
We are
that
keeping
out.
that. No, we're keeping
They made
it.
a video game out of it, and it was really bloody, but it's also a comic book character.
It's definitely a comic book
Yeah.
character.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now. Yeah.
He's pretty cool.
You haven't heard of Spawn?
I mean, I probably heard of Spawn.
He's strangely very similar to Ghost Rider.
I see the chain. He has a chain.
He's similar. He's like Venom, but that didn't get popular. He's got a following, a very
But
underground following.
he's like a underworld.
All right, I'm looking at the costume
Kinda
now.
thing.
That is a costume. I gotta
It
say,
is a costume.
It's cool.
That's-
It's crazy, but it's cool.
Yeah.
Regardless, I had seen Blade. I've actually got pretty strong memories of this movie. Actually, the whole trilogy. I guess where David grew up with the nu metal, I grew up with the warehouse techno. So this kind of
Yeah.
resonated with me.
Yeah,
I'm feeling that house EDM.
got the Matrix vibes throughout this whole movie.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
actually not house,
Yeah.
but
Whatever, AJ. You know music.
if
in this
there's anyone to be
regard.
pedantic about electronica genres, then it's me. So
So what is this again? What is it? What kind of music?
most of it is actually techno, like true techno.
Yeah.
Isn't house techno? We're not getting into this debate. Sorry.
And to round this out, I want to say I've seen about half of this movie, and that is the first half. I do recall. I feel like I got interrupted, had to do something else, and
Never saw it again.
it was more one of those movies where I was like, okay, people talk about this movie, I'm gonna throw it on.
Are you
I
sure you just didn't put it on at a Halloween party and then leave?
No, that was not the case. This one I actually wanted to give attention to, but for some reason my viewing experience was interrupted and I never got all the way to the end. But so yeah, this is still kind of a new thing for me, this whole franchise, even though I've seen bits and pieces of the second one as well. Are y'all ready to get into the story, guys?
Yeah, baby.
Oh, and I guess I should do the call to action.
All right, everybody. If you haven't already, please, follow, like, subscribe, share with your friends. We're really trying our hardest to promote ourselves and get ourselves out there. So to help the algorithm, please, Apple Podcasts is one of the best ways to do it. Give us 5 stars, leave a comment, do whatever you can to help us out because we enjoy doing this and that helps us out. So thanks.
All right, let's get to that story.
For thousands of years, they have existed among us.
You keep your eyes open. They're everywhere. Chances are you've seen them yourself and didn't know it.
A secret nation
Our livelihood depends on our ability to blend in.
with a lust for power.
We should be ruling the humans. These people are our food.
They've got their claws into everything. Politics, finance, real estate. There's a war going on out there. He makes the weapons. I use them.
Now, one will lead them to conquer mankind.
Tonight, the age of man comes to an end.
We're gonna be gods.
And one will try to stop him dead.
There are worse things out tonight than vampires.
Like what?
Like me.
Half human,
Blade's mother was attacked by a vampire while she was pregnant.
half immortal.
You got the best of both worlds. All our strengths, none of our weaknesses.
He is their greatest fear and our only hope.
It's open season on all vampires.
Wesley Snipes, Stephen Dorff,
You're one of them, aren't you?
No, I'm something else.
Blade.
In 1967, a pregnant woman is attacked by a vampire, causing her to go into premature labor. Doctors are able to save her baby, but the woman dies of an unknown infection. 30 years later, in 1997, the child has become the vampire hunter Blade. He raids a Los Angeles rave club owned by the vampire Deacon Frost. Police take one of the vampires to the hospital, where he kills Dr. Curtis Webb and feeds on hermatologist Karen Jensen, and then escapes.
Hematologist.
Blade take...
Hermatology is something different.
Think blood.
Hermatologist.
Said,
His study of the...
Blade takes Karen to a safe house where she is treated by his old friend Abraham Whistler. Whistler explains that he and Blade have been waging a secret war against vampires using weapons based on their elemental weakness, such as sunlight, silver, and garlic. As Karen is now marked by the bite of a vampire, both he and Blade tell her to leave the city. Alright, guys. First impressions.
I'm really into this. That's my first impression.
Wait, hold on. Did we get to the rave scene yet?
Yes.
It's the intro.
Yeah, that's the whole intro.
Literally the first part. Yeah.
Good job listening
Well,
to
that's
the
not
plot,
the
guys.
Sorry, a
first
little
part.
distracted. No, I think this was one of my favorite parts of the movie, to be honest. I was
Just
extremely...
right from the beginning?
Yeah, I think they pull you in really quick. This movie is really good at throwing energy.
They got lots of colors, too.
Yeah, the blood through the sprinklers.
All the black.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the red.
Honestly, so that part where they're at the club and the sprinklers go off and there's blood, it's a blood rave of some
Yeah.
kind. I just imagined some familiar being told, like, hey, we need like 1,000 gallons of blood just so that we can sprinkle onto people while they dance.
Yeah,
Can
well-
you do that? And I just see Guillermo like,
Oh, it's not Guillermo
That's
del
the second
Toro on
movie.
this one.
no, not Guillermo del Toro. Guillermo.
Oh, from What We Do in the Shadows.
Yeah, the
Oh, I was
familiar.
gonna
I just
say.
imagine him having to like put blood, like Guillermo, go fill up
Is that-
1,000 gallons of blood.
That's who that is?
No.
No, he's
He
just
just-
making a reference.
I'm just saying, I'm imagining a scenario
gonna
where
say.
somebody has to fill up
Like a vampire familiar
ridiculous
having-
amount of
yeah.
blood
Yeah.
I was
just
gonna
for
say,
a sprinkler system.
I was going to say, I didn't remember him being in this, and I was
Yeah.
going to be surprised.
It does a couple things simultaneously. One, like you said, it sets energy, it sets the tone, but it also, tips you off that, hey, vampires are well established in the world. They've already got their own
Yeah.
underground, society. They've got things going for them.
Yeah.
Back of a meat
I think
packing plant.
Yeah, I really like the setting of this rave party, and it's just in a meat packing plant, basically. And not to mention, like, the whole blood in the sprinklers thing is just kind of that, you get that idea of the decadence of this brand of vampires. Like, they just kind of pour blood all over themselves, that's a wasteful thing to do, but they don't care because they own the world, essentially. That's their mentality.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Wesley Snipes tames this movie like a bucking bronco.
Oh, yeah.
Right at the beginning.
Oh,
where it's
yeah.
just like, yeah, this guy, he's got star power.
Yeah, and
he's
that's
Blade.
a look. That's a look.
He is a well-established person in this world. He's been doing this for a while.
I just love his leather trench coat look. It's
He makes it work. I forget the comment he makes, but someone shoots him and he makes some retort. Do you remember?
Oh, yeah, when he's in the hospital, he's like, are you out of your damn mind? Or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good.
It was one of my favorites.
So good.
And of course decides to save Karen who has been bitten and throws her across onto another skyscraper.
Because that's how that works.
Exactly.
Hey, he's a super vampire. Okay.
This movie is very interesting because it has like these over the top scenarios, and it's in my mind it's fine because they're all vampires or demi vampires, whatever. But then it also manages to incorporate this sense of kind of actually emotionality to him, where the reason he stops to save her is because she reminds him of his own mother. Mm-hmm. So like you have that brief flash of his mother reaching out to him like when he was being taken from her as a baby. And so I don't know, it's like I like this balance here, but it doesn't over focus on it ever.
That over the top does blend well, and I think it's important to set context right away where this is a comic book movie, and this was kind of the forerunner of Marvel or comic book movies in general, where this kind of before Sam Raimi Spider-Man, hit the scene, which most people think of as the original big movie blockbuster comic book character. This is
actually I'd say is X-Men too.
Either one.
This came out around the same time as X-Men, or right before, right?
This was before.
Yeah, X-Men was 2000, Blade was 1998, and Spider-Man was 2002.
I mean, to be fair, even though both of those are set in the Marvel universe, they both have kind of a more loose attachment as far as the films go to that kind of world that they created.
Yeah, I'm not talking about universe. I'm talking about the some of the, I guess, critiques of this movie might be, if you don't know it's a comic book character, then you're like, this is goofy, this is cheesy, campy. But then once you realize that it is a comic book, you understand why those elements are there and portrayed that way.
So something they do in this that I thought about is the reality versus that comic book feel. It almost has the reality sense that Marvel does in their TV shows nowadays. I could totally see this being in its own TV series. Something similar to Daredevil or what's his name?
Don't they have a plan for that?
No, there's a movie coming out with Mahershala Ali, Blade in the MCU.
I heard that Wesley Snipes reached out to Marvel and was like, "Hey, dudes, I'll reprise my role," and they're like, "Yeah, no, we're not doing that."
Tax evasion.
I understand, but it's kind of sad.
I'd love him to reprise his role.
Yeah. But it also makes sense. He's probably aging and
so they've got that blend of the comic book side of things, but the reality, like David said, it's got that kind of earthy, gritty, kind of it's realistic, and I think part of that also pulls from what we have seen recently with John Wick. You've got the reality of the martial arts, and Wesley Snipes was very well versed and trained in martial arts, multiple disciplines, and a lot of the choreography in this it feels real because he knows what he's doing in real life, and it almost harkens to John Wick, where it's almost like an exhibition of technique, and so I thought that was
cool
really
muscle car too.
I know. I was noting that the choreography was particularly good in this one, at least on his part. I just thought, man, that's really fluid. Gosh.
Yeah.
They knew what they were doing with this one compared to other superhero movies. I think before it, I feel like they didn't do as much with the choreography. Like, you're a superhuman, go do exciting superhuman things like jumping over buildings or flying and saving people. But there wasn't really intense hand-to-hand combat before this. At least that I can remember.
And
there's plenty of stuff before this, but
no, it doesn't exist. Nothing.
Not to throw it too much into like the plot of the future part, but they have that fight scene at the end, and you compare Wesley Snipes fighting to the other guy, and it's like, ooh, the other guy does not look like he's
Steven Dorff's character.
He does not look as competent in that field.
Yeah.
Well, you got in the beginning, you got him pinning him to the wall with stakes and lighting him, completely on fire. It's like pushing the envelope, pushing the edge. Still, I don't know. I think the movie does a good job of balancing those two tonal elements.
Yeah,
definitely.
So pushing us back into the plot too. I think a big thing that they use in all these movies that I don't think we've touched on yet is how vampires die. So they use a lot of the traditional elements with garlic, stakes, and silver. But the way that the director chose to have them die, what would you call that?
Just disintegrating
Yeah,
almost
like
into
the-
flame.
I don't
But
know.
they almost
kinda
explode.
Like, it was kind of like flash powder almost. That's
Yeah.
kind
Yeah.
of what it reminds me of.
I think that was a really cool choice.
And Queen of the Damned stole this but did it worse somehow. Like
it also makes me think of Ghost Rider a little bit too.
I was less of a fan of their usage of CG. I know it was 1998 and that's spotty, but every time it showed up, it kind of took me out of it a little bit.
I was fine with all the the immolation scenes. I thought it did look dated. I more
not
had a
horribly.
problem with a scene towards the end.
yes,
yes.
that in particular.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, back to the plot. How many of y'all pretty much called it from the beginning that Blade was the son of that lady who was in the hospital gurney?
I thought that was
obvious,
supposed to be
yeah.
obvious.
Yeah.
It was? Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was
All of
like,
us were like,
oh, what's
yeah.
going on with this? Because they never actually spell it out.
Oh, okay.
But okay, I guess it was obvious.
I thought it was like
Did anyone else think that villain looks like a mixture of Ian Somerhalder and Chris Pine? But like,
Those two specifically, I never did think about that, but I
Really?
can see it.
when I first saw this. Well, at least watching it for this podcast session, my first thought was, oh, I spot another Chad Pyre.
Yep.
I knew Noah was
That's a
going to
new
make
thing.
that.
Thanks, Noah.
Yeah, so I guess that leads us to Deacon Frost. I actually
well,
really enjoyed his kind of, I guess, cocky, like he just exudes that kind of sleazy
Yeah.
villain, but he's also
yeah.
frosty, like to his name, and his name is cheesy, but it also really fits his character. And so I like his
I'm
character.
Frosty. Yeah.
Deacon
Yeah,
Frost.
he's not a bad villain. Well, he's bad.
He's one of those where if
He's
you haven't
okay.
seen this movie before and his first scene, you imagine, okay, I know exactly what this guy is going to do and how he's going to act, and it's going to be a little cringe because he's just going to be a little douche vampire. But as I watched him more, his character was far more interesting than just that. Like,
Yeah.
obviously, he has the douche power, but he has a little more of that desire for decadence and kind of wanting to rule the land in a way in the manner that he thinks they deserve. And I think because we just came off the heels of Queen of the Damned, he portrays that kind of, hey, we are at the top of the food chain better than I thought they represented it in Queen of the Damned.
yeah.
Actually, he felt more threatening to me, like he would actually try to do something
Because
like that.
he's simultaneously aloof to like the overall machinations of the big scheme of things, but he also is pulling the strings.
yeah.
I thought he was fine, but I was kind of hoping for a bigger counterbalance to Wesley Snipes, like someone of equal kind
power.
of
Right.
power, but on opposing. Like I wanted I don't know, just a bigger presence there, and he's
Yeah.
That's hard, though. I mean, Wesley Snipes holds so much weight in these movies.
You're talking about like a more physically dominant force against him.
Yeah, something that seemed someone who had more. Even though he tries at charisma, I feel like he doesn't quite nail it.
Yeah.
But also, a more imposing physical force as well. Someone
Yeah.
who looks like they could go toe-to-toe with Wesley Snipes.
Yeah. I
'Cause to me,
wouldn't care-
when I just look at that character, I'm like, oh, Wesley Snipes is going to eat this guy for breakfast in the end.
Yeah.
Like,
I haven't
I-
seen
I
anybody
agree.
in these movies,
So,
though, that could.
Regarding that, I don't really care to have a more physical presence, but I would have preferred a little more a villain on more of the brain side of things.
Yeah.
Because Blade is such a brute force kind of guy, the hardest thing to oppose him would be someone that's more of a mastermind.
Right.
And maybe they were planning on doing that later.
like
but-
get a Jason Statham type or something like that.
yeah.
Someone who you believe could get in the ring with him and just have a really interesting
No.
fight or something.
I think my main thing was I wanted him to like almost always win in a 1v1 because he is the alpha and he has all the martial arts skills. So it's kind of just, it makes sense for him to win every time.
Right.
But that's why I wanted more of a cerebral villain than a
Yeah, I see what
Yeah.
you're saying.
physical one-on-one.
Somebody that
Yeah.
can match him in some way.
All I'm saying is when I saw this guy for the first time, I was like, yep, this is definitely like he's one of those types of villains where he's just like, oh, I ooze sexuality, but I'm actually going to bite you in the neck.
Yeah.
It's just, Okay.
Yeah,
he's fine.
kinda
He's
tired of it.
Yeah, he gets by. Like
I think he has charisma. I think that's what carries it.
he's no Queen of the Damned villain or anything like that. But
yeah. So at this point, we have Blade saving this nurse Karen and then throwing her to another building.
Yeah, we need to talk about Whistler.
Yeah.
Chris Christopherson. He's actually before Frost.
I love him, actually.
So he takes. I already forgot her name. Karen.
Should be an easy name to remember during these times.
Karen.
Just think of it as Karen and Chad.
Yeah, Karen and Chad. He takes Karen over to his base, where I guess Christopherson Whistler is sort of his counterpart.
He's the guy who makes all the weapons, and Blade uses them.
He kind of, like, he's supposed to sort of guide Blade in a way and influence him.
Yeah, he was the OG vampire killer, and then he came upon Blade, who's a daywalker, and their relationship works out.
I believe that in the comics, this guy was actually someone else, but they kind of created this Whistler character in his place. I can't remember the name of the actual character, but it doesn't matter. It's just different.
Yeah. But I like Chris Christopherson a lot in this. He gives me very like Jeff Bridges vibes. I know some of you guys thought Nick Nolte.
Yeah,
I was waiting for him to be
Nolte.
like, "So Blade, this is what we're doing now." I'm like, oh,
you sound like Roz.
Roz
from Monsters Inc.
Oh, Mike Wazowski.
So I think like we've agreed that he sounds sort of like Kurt Russell, but looks like Jeff Bridges, and David gets Nick Nolte vibes. But yeah, I like him. He is a nice, counterpart to Blade. I like their relationship. They've got a decent chemistry where it's like, he's kind of taken Blade under his wing, and Blade is now, in the forefront, doing the missions. It's a good dynamic.
Yeah.
So Chris Christopherson, was he in many movies? Because I knew he was a sort of what did he do? Americana music? Or?
No, he's a singer-songwriter, but he's also a pretty decent actor.
Well, no, I definitely can tell he's a decent actor. I was looking up his stuff earlier, and before this, there wasn't really much. So I'm actually really impressed with his skill in this movie. I think that he does a really good job of balancing Blade out.
Yeah, I think that's why they brought him back for the second one, not to spoil anything.
Yeah, I actually,
I do.
You literally just spoiled it.
I think that the funny thing is watching this character, you immediately get the he's gonna die vibes,
Well, like the moment he's like
well no, even before that, you just kind of have this sense, this is going to be the emotional moment where he has to say goodbye to his mentor or whatever. And but then once he starts coughing, you're like, all right. It's kind of the same trope as someone coughing into a white handkerchief, and you're all like, there's blood on there, isn't there? Yep.
Meanwhile, at a meeting of the House of Erebus, a council of vampire elders, Frost, the leader of a faction of younger vampires, is rebuked for trying to incite war between vampires and humans. As Frost and his kind are not purebloods, they're natural-born vampires, they are considered socially inferior. In response, Frost has one of the elders executed and strips the others of their authority. Upon returning to her apartment, Karen is attacked by police officer Krieger, who is a familiar, a human slave controlled by a vampire. Blade subdues Krieger and uses information from him to locate an archive that contains pages of the Book of Erebus, a vampire Bible. He comes upon Pearl, a morbidly obese vampire, and tortures him with a UV light into revealing that Deacon wants to command a ritual where he would use 12 pureblood vampires to represent the 12 spirits. With the blood and the strength of all 12 spirits, it will awaken the blood god La Magra, and Blade's blood is the key. Later, at the hideout, Blade injects himself with a special serum that suppresses his urge to drink human blood. However, the serum is beginning to lose its effectiveness due to overuse. Krieger informs Frost of what happened, and Frost kills and eats Krieger. Okay, so we already talked about Frost, so we can move on past that. Let's talk a little more about Karen and her deal. So, basically, she's told by Blade and Whistler that she needs to get out of town. Obviously, that doesn't happen because she is used kind of as bait to find this Krieger guy. What do we think about this whole sequence and this whole familiar thing and all that?
I think it's a fun way of explaining it to the audience. I was aware from the very beginning that they were doing something because they just let her off and run like, hey, just take this this canister of garlic.
I think this whole movie, it's interesting that we're covering this now because especially in this climate today, it's very hard to ignore the almost social critique that it has because you have obviously a black lead who has like one foot in both worlds where he's both a vampire and a human. He's working and operating out of a warehouse, so kind of derelict conditions. And these vampires are largely white males who are kind of have this secret society where everything is kind of going their way, and also have their manipulations in the police. So it's just really weird to watch it right now and kind of see
the parallels.
parallel. So like I didn't read anything that said that was intentional, but it just seems
weirdly
a little
relevant.
Too relevant right now.
Yeah, who knows? I haven't read the original comic either, so I don't know
whether that was the director's influence or like something that was actually in.
I didn't read into it as much, but I definitely got that police vibe of having somebody
corrupt police.
Exactly, corrupt police, and the fact that it shows that these vampires are tracking Nancy.
Nancy?
Dang it. Karen.
What's so hard about Karen?
I don't know.
Why would you go to Nancy?
Okay, no, I'm used to the names on the podcast, but for some reason, Karen is not sticking. But Karen is in this, I don't even know, apartment complex, and then is being...
Yeah, it's her apartment.
You see all these vampires around her with the tattoos and everything. You're like, oh, well, this is going to be something. And then the police officer shows up, and of course, he is the one that she has to be more weary of. And... what was it? She sprays him with the garlic, finds out he's a familiar, and tries to use his power against her. And then that's when Blade comes in.
Yeah, I love how he has no problem just wrecking her place.
Yeah.
He's just, let me throw him onto the table, break that. Oh, there's some glass there. Let's throw him there.
No, they're way beyond that already. He knows that she's kind of like a doomed soul at this point. So.
No, I know. But I think it's funny because you see him later in the movie messing up people just by punching them a couple times or whatever. But with this guy, let me throw him all over the place.
You gotta have a little fun on the job.
No, fair enough. Let off some steam a little bit, maybe.
So I already forgot almost that Karen.
Good job.
It's
actually Nancy.
I was gonna say it's Nancy.
No, I'm trying to use techniques to just reinforce that Karen. Their whole thing is that she's kind of doomed.
Yes. Here's what I want to throw out to you guys, because I didn't get this from the very beginning, and maybe I just wasn't paying perfect attention like usual.
Like a good boy.
But why were they going after Karen in the first place? Because it seemed like she was the original target and the one that they were going to take in for this ritual or whatever. And then it pivots to, no, actually we want Blade alive.
I thought it was just that she was taken by Blade, so she might know where he is. So they were
something
taking
like that.
her.
Now this goes back to the first action sequence in this movie. Like, what was happening there? It was in a hospital, or it was in some, I don't know. I don't even know where it was. It was in this building, and
a research lab.
Vampires they bite this lady.
Oh no,
Blade comes onto the scene.
Autopsy.
Okay, yeah. They were doing the autopsy because there was that guy that was on fire, remember? The vampire on fire, and so he was brought in, and they thought he was dead. But then he comes to life and bites her partner, or the guy that was working with her.
Yeah.
And so then later she is bit herself. But it's basically just this vampire on a rampage from the club scenario.
But the thing is, they were originally trying to... I mean, after she gets bit, they're trying to apprehend the lady for this ritual, and then they shift to Blade. It's like, no, we need to get Blade now and bring him in alive.
Which ritual? Are you talking about the ritual in the end?
Yeah, because they end up getting Blade for the ritual at the end, but
I thought they always needed Blade.
That's how I remember it. There might be also an element because when she was doing the hematology report and looking through, like, she noticed the RBCs are biconvex or instead of biconcave, and so I don't know if they're like, oh, she knows something more than she should, and I think it's also that she has that connection with Blade. But as far as the overall end goal of the ritual, I don't know that she was, if they're really talking about her at that point, or if she's just kind of caught up in the whirlwind of it.
Yeah. Because there's one scene that stands out in this movie to me that kind of confused me a little, and it's when Frost is talking to that really annoying guy that gets burned, and he's like, I want you to go get Blade, and I want him alive. And I'm like, oh, wait, you didn't want him alive before? Was he not originally the target? Because you have to have him alive for the ritual. It made it sound like beforehand.
I see.
They were just go kill him.
Well, I think that the other people who were trying to kill him weren't a part of Frost's thing. I think
they are.
It was also
all of them, every single vampire.
It also coincided with
movie.
He was decrypting the plans of the Erebus book or whatever it was for the ritual itself, and finding that the temple, like, he's entertaining all this party and things are just kind of like status quo and people are partying and stuff, and he's like active, like kind of got this project on the back burner down low, and then he finally cracks this encryption and figures this out, and he's like, okay, now let's start really kicking this into high gear. Instead of messing around with Blade, let's capture him and use him because he seems like he's lining up with what I'm finding.
Yeah. All right, who knows? Maybe potentially still a plot hole. Maybe I'm just stupid. But let's move on. What do we think about the whole him breaking into this facility, and there's this big obese vampire
Jabba the Hutt looking guy?
Yeah, Karen's involved now, and she is having a little bit of fun with the UV light.
A little too much fun, almost.
I found that funny because just previously she was stopping Blade from using his gun to just threaten a guy, but meanwhile, torture's fine.
Yeah.
Torture's fun.
It was another sign of like, oh yeah, this it definitely makes sense that Guillermo del Toro would take on this franchise, because like this whole sequence seemed like something that del Toro would do.
Something out of Hellboy.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's this, he likes having all these like underground societies and worlds that aren't connected with the real world.
Similar to the Matrix too. You have like the Oracle and everything, like two different societies going in parallel.
Yeah. And this leads to them gaining access. I actually thought that sequence was really effective. From the practical effects of the massive vampire, the UV effects on the burning, and then the unlocking of the next room.
Okay,
yeah, that's pretty
so
good.
The one thing I want to clarify is what that big obese. Is it a vampire?
Yes, it's a vampire.
It was a vampire.
It was something. It was doing a job for Frost, right? Is that correct?
Probably.
Yeah, it was under Frost. For sure.
And so what was that vampire's job? Like, why are they there?
Tech,
Data
security,
analyst.
I thought it,
Yeah.
Data analyst.
Yeah, it's kind of a librarian, like keeper of logs and history and cracking whatever.
Yeah.
I think he was helping him decrypt that book.
Oh.
For the final sort of...
Oh, yeah, because remember when he's in his room and he's looking at all those glyphs being translated and
because
everything.
Frost and him are actively video talking, like, are you done with this? As Blade comes in. Like, they're talking about decrypting that file or decrypting the ancient ritual information.
Yeah, so he's...
Oh, that's right. So
that makes sense.
So, okay, it's flooding back now. So they were scanning all these glyphs to try to decode the ritual.
So one thing this movie does very well, I think it's really good at making Blade seem like a really imposing force that is not easy to stop, but also putting him in situations where he's vulnerable. And the first example of this is when he's tricked by that girl and actually captured by Frost's men. Where I was like, okay, cool. Blade is in a compromised situation. He's not just an unstoppable Terminator. He can be stopped. So I kind of like.
Plus the
seeing
internal
that
dilemma
side.
of feeding blood or using the serum.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just it adds complexity to his character, and I just like seeing that. Sometimes it's good to have a character who just mows down everyone. In the case of like Dredd, but in this case, I think having him get into a bit of a pinch every now and then is necessary.
Well, it feels like almost like a Dredd in a way where 99% of the time he has no problem. You watch him. If you see like a group of 10 people that are just average bad guys running at Blade, do you feel like he's going to have an issue?
No.
No, not really.
There's two distinct times in this movie, though. Once here and once in the end, where he is definitely like on the ropes.
Yeah, no, I know. You know? I agree with you. I think they did a good job of balancing it because he feels like the most formidable person in this movie. Like it takes a special situation to put him off his game. Well, he can do anything.
It's pretty much whenever he's put into a state wherever his emotions kind of come out that he's taken advantage of.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, by the way, something that just reminded me that we didn't really touch on that much is that because he is half human, half vampire, he has to constantly inject himself. Did we talk about that?
AJ brought it up momentarily.
Yeah, so he does have the bloodthirst, but he also is immune to garlic and silver.
Yeah, he's the daywalker.
As they say, I think that he has all the benefits of vampires without the negative, other than
the bloodlust.
The bloodlust, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Really cool concept.
I really like. So they showed when he first meets up with Whistler, he is injecting himself with a
some sort of serum, yeah,
to keep himself from bloodlust, and the amount of pain he looks like he's going through. It's intense, and his Whistler's grabbing his hand and he's trying to like basically put in his mouth guard to try to not bite into himself.
It's not easy being vegan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh, can I talk about
being
aesthetics for a quick second?
No, please do. I was thinking that myself.
Something that it seems like it's an impulse in early 2000s, late 90s movies is to drench the movie in blue or red or orange, like just
tinting the movie.
Yeah, tinting it. This movie doesn't give into those impulses for the most part. There's a couple of scenes where it does do it. No, but
isn't it just like blue all the time?
No, it doesn't.
Yeah. No.
I was watching it.
It feels like it to me.
Okay, well maybe y'all thought so, but I was noticing the daylight scenes, there was color. It wasn't like drenched in this cold blue that you see in every Underworld movie. Maybe
it's because of the fact that you're not in the daytime very much in this movie.
Yeah, like skin color. Skin color looks like the color of skin, not blue.
Okay, I see. It's not. I guess maybe their shading isn't always blue, but the lighting they use a lot of the times in the background is blue, and that's the color that I think of with this movie.
Yeah, I was definitely gonna say the backgrounds are usually pretty blue, but all of the colors of actual things or things that are meant to have some sort of note are very vibrant.
Yeah.
No, as far as a stylistic choice and world building, like set design, this is one of my favorite things about this movie, and I think it's flawless. Like, it's not as detailed and hyper attentive to just overdoing it as, like, say, Blade Runner, but like I just saw a scene of him driving his Charger through the city, and even like the fast forward effects and all that stuff, like it still looks good. The city, the panning shots and everything, like you feel like this is an actual world, and everything just kind of meshes.
Kind of like John Wick in a way, where you have that secret society where you're trying to operate in real time and real world without being noticed, but for some reason no one notices, I guess, when you're killing people.
Yeah, I was just talking about aesthetically of the whole world. Like it feels like
the mood and
the style.
Yeah. So one scene I wanted to call out real quick. That moment where Frost kills that old council member. That was so cool to me.
That was good.
If anyone's seen like Near Dark, it reminded me of how those vampires are just destroyed in a very practical, visceral way.
Yeah.
Even though there's still some CGI involved, I liked seeing the immolation process happen slower, and it didn't disappoint.
Yeah, and the whole sunscreen thing was kind of cheesy, but it actually it felt like as part of the how they operate. So
yeah.
So is there like some sort of thing with, I guess, pre-vampires or the ones that are born vampires versus
pure
turned
blood
vampires? They're like some sort of elitism between them.
A little bit.
Well,
it
seemed like a lot of it.
Nobility. They're the pure bloods, and everyone else who was not born a vampire is inferior in some manner.
It's weird because you have the same powers, so I don't really see how that matters, and obviously it doesn't.
That's the same with humans.
Like, if these people, as they say, or they allude to, like, some of these people knew what the sunset and sunrise looked like because they were human and they experienced it. The people that, or the vampires that were born into it, never experienced that. So I mean, in a sense, it's probably like being born blind or becoming blind after, like, you have different frames of reference.
Yeah.
That's true.
So let's talk a little bit more about Frost and his motivations. I know we already talked about Frost a bit, but so basically he wants to summon a blood god, Lamagra. I'm wondering how he gets all these people in on this, though.
That's my main critique of this movie. The old vampires, the old blood, the council, they're real pushovers.
Yeah.
Like, he basically walks all over
They really
them.
are.
They just stand there as they're being put into this ritual and let it happen. Like, they just roll over.
Yeah, I was thinking, where are all their, where's their armada?
Or any sense of agency.
They've just been around.
It really doesn't prop up the strength of the main antagonist. Like, Reese, you had that point earlier. He's not menacing. He's not foreboding. He's got that coolness to him, but if this
He's in their
supposed
face.
strength of the status quo just kind of rolls over and dies immediately and lets him walk all over them, then it's just like, who are these people that there's not really an oppositional force beyond, the institution, I guess.
Yeah. Let's round out this section by talking about the other action sequence that we haven't mentioned, the whole train action sequence. I thought, I saw some things here that, the Spider-Man trilogy took. Like the pressing the guy's face against the moving train.
The
having the
third
Sandman.
one.
Yeah. There's some iffy CGI here, especially when Blade grabs onto the back of the train and they're whipped onto it.
That was bad.
Yeah, but I still found this sequence to be pretty exhilarating, and Blade again is kind of up against insane odds. Like, how is he going to get out of this? And I felt the tension and of this scene. So yeah, I thought it worked.
The nice thing about the CGI, while some is very obvious, it's incredibly brief. So I'm able to just kind of forget it and move on.
It doesn't linger on it. It's just a very, blink and you miss it type scene.
It's not the main point, but I would still have preferred some practical.
Oh, and also, what happened to Whistler there? Like, it seemed like he got killed, and then
he was like, he can
Blade
take
was
care
like,
of himself.
yeah, he can take care of himself. I'm like, wait, didn't he just
got
get
hit by a train?
and he's human? I was like,
He's not half vampire, Blade.
Yeah, that's what I was confused about. I thought for a moment, wait, maybe is he a vampire? Wait, what?
Well,
and then
I think his character, you have to assume, has been a vampire hunter long before Blade started doing his thing. So maybe he's just more familiar with how Whistler handles himself in these situations, because I think he's been by himself with no half vampire to help.
it was just kind of hilarious.
Yeah, it is.
All right, let's move on. While experimenting with the anticoagulant EDTA as a possible replacement, Karen discovers that it explodes when combined with vampire blood. She manages to synthesize a vaccine that can cure the infected, but learns that it will not work on a human-vampire hybrid like Blade. Karen is confident that she can cure Blade's bloodthirst, but it would take her years of treating it. Frost and his men attack the hideout, infect Whistler, and abduct Karen. When Blade returns, he helps Whistler commit suicide and arms himself with special syringes filled with EDTA. When Blade attempts to rescue Karen from Frost's penthouse, he is shocked to find his still-alive mother, who reveals that she came back the night she was attacked and was brought in by Frost, who appears and reveals himself as the vampire who bit her. Blade is then subdued and taken to the Temple of Eternal Night, where Frost plans to perform the summoning ritual for Lamagra. Karen is thrown into a pit to be devoured by Webb, who has transformed into a decomposing zombie-like creature. Karen injures Webb with a sharp bone and escapes. Blade is drained of his blood, but Karen allows him to drink from her, enabling him to recover. Frost completes the ritual and obtains the powers of Lamagra. Blade confronts Frost after killing all of his minions, including Blade's mother. During their fight, Blade injects Frost with all of the syringes, causing his body to inflate and explode, killing him. So, Karen, she seems pretty confident that she can just solve this vampire thing.
And she does it in a couple days.
Yeah, I was watching this with my roommates, and I think one of them was like, dude, she jumped on board real quick.
Yeah.
Like, she's 100% vampire hunter now.
Have you seen Wesley Snipes?
Yeah, that's fair. If he asked me to join, I would be in.
Also, something I think the movie does poorly is set up that Blade doesn't want to be a vampire or whatever he is, because I never got the impression that he was trying to get out of what he was doing.
No.
You know, he's kind of just boring full on ahead into this vampire slaying business. But all of a sudden she seems to think that he wants to be cured.
No.
Yeah, they focused a little more on the fact that he hates vampires.
I think the only clue in is that it mentions early on that he's becoming more and more resistant to that serum or whatever it is to stop his bloodlust. Like it's becoming almost like he's adapting to it, so he's not sure how he's going to handle it once it doesn't work anymore. Oh. So I think that's the only argument I could make in that, is maybe because he's afraid he could be susceptible again. He's looking for a cure.
Yeah. And I guess she's like, I'll kill two birds with one stone if I can cure myself.
Maybe I can cure you.
Yeah. So, you know, I'm not going to ding it any points. It just seemed like they were trying to set up this kind of subplot.
Yeah.
And just, it wasn't as successful.
Yeah. Let's see. I feel like we covered a lot in that segment. And it's a little hard to organize all the events that happen.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. So what are the significant moments we need to talk about there?
Karen is abducted, Whistler's infected, and Blade helps him, commit suicide.
Yeah.
That's a big thing.
I actually found that moment, I liked that scene, and kind of the fact that you don't see it, but you hear the gunshot and the kind of, cold-faced leaving that room before you could see anything happen.
Wait, I didn't know he was infected. I thought he was just tortured.
Well, no, there you find out.
You see blood coming from his neck.
Yeah.
The thing, I thought this was actually my favorite scene in the movie, even though, I love the action scenes. Those are the highlight. But if we're going for, emotional scenes, like this one, the one just where Blade is dabbing his face of the blood, actually, back up. The scene where he can't even look at him, but he sees the sheet over his head. Yeah. And he just pulls it off.
Yeah.
And slightly turns his head to look at him.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, that was actually an expertly done scene.
Especially for a hardened kind of person.
Yeah.
When you think about it in movies, it's very easy to just tell an actor to react emotionally to this. And there's kind of this standard of how you're supposed to do that. But it's very cool that they found a way that was uniquely Blade's way of handling this situation, where he's kind of, the fact that he doesn't want to look really does show you how much he cares for this guy.
Yeah. You feel his heart drop in his stomach.
Yeah, exactly. So it's very effective.
The one person he let into his life, basically.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, wow, this movie has more going on than just being a fun action movie. I was like, I do feel something here.
Yeah, there are moments that are really well dispersed in this.
And it does something that movies like this that came out during this time didn't, and it holds on a face for longer than a second.
Yeah.
Where it's like, it just holds on Wesley Snipes' face for, a good amount of time. You just look into him and it's like, wow, this is weird for a movie like this. It's like, I'm actually, I can actually analyze his expression instead of it quickly cutting to something else.
Right.
And I thought that's a bold move.
And Wesley Snipes sells it, I gotta say.
Oh, yeah.
I really felt the pain. It was hard to watch.
Yeah, that whole scene was done really well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what I like is you expect kind of in this role just the full-on macho hero type thing. And while he is macho, it's not...
It's real. It shows that you can still be macho and feel pain.
Exactly. He's not just this cartoon. Yeah. I mean, his abilities are, and the way whenever he's fighting, definitely... That's very comic booky, but whenever you get down to his interpersonal kind of dealings, it shows a more human side, which is cool.
Yeah, this scene's also important because it establishes stakes. The movie is brave enough to kill a main character, and now, we as an audience, along with Blade, want revenge. Mm-hmm. And now we're gonna kill this Steven Dorff douchepire. Chad Pyre. Sorry,
Chad Pyre.
I messed up the term.
Hey, you get that right next time, okay?
Yeah, but that is just a very important, pivotal moment that is well executed.
Yeah.
All right, where are we? So Blade
yeah,
attempts
we're
to
in
rescue Karen from Frost's penthouse, and he finds his living mother.
That's where I started getting a little more confused. Not to say that it wasn't confusing in some other parts, but
I thought it was interesting, but I think it almost diminishes the villain because I was kind of holding out for that twist to be for a more sinister character, I guess.
Yeah.
I think it's sort of thrown in there, but it doesn't quite have the same impact that, say, his best friend and mentor dying does. You know, but it's kind of like, oh yeah, that was a surprise, and I guess she's evil now.
Yeah, it diminishes the impact of Whistler's death, and it's like, oh, this twist of the betrayal of the mother, it's unnecessary.
Right.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. It didn't seem like it needed to be there. It was just oh, by the way, it was also me.
Yeah, and
as if you didn't hate me already.
I think in the comics, it's the character of Deacon Frost is supposed to be basically like that arch enemy character where he is the main antagonist. Mm-hmm. And I guess my theory is just that this film probably didn't expect to get more than one, so they had to kind of wrap the whole story together, you know, and have that twist because, you know, when are they going to cover it?
Yeah.
But
it almost would have been there. I know they were trying to have their big New Hope moment where it's like, Empire Strikes Back moment where it's like, I am your father. Or, but it was just so diminished in this.
Yep.
What I feel like would have been more effective, if you want to include the mother in all of this, is have her be like basically a Mad Max blood bag in this that they discover that they've just been like leeching off of. Or something, or imprisoned,
completely.
or I don't know. Just
it was weird for me, and what confused me is they didn't dive into it at all. They're just like, "Here's your mom. Oh, hey mom, I'm gonna kill you now." And there's just nothing. I wanted some sort of development, like, why are you here? Are you evil? Why are you working with them?
He shows some confusion at first.
Does.
His face, yeah.
Well,
but
he
she
definitely.
didn't.
He definitely looked shocked.
It's not that. It's the fact that they didn't explain it to the audience. He was shocked, and I was shocked too. But then that was it. It was like she attacks him. I was like, wait, have a conversation.
So the thing is, she's supposed to be fully a vampire now and has basically no human empathy anymore. So that's supposed to be the point here. But it's like you said, just not. You don't really feel that moment. You don't feel any connection to her. You don't feel bad for her plight. It's just, this is another thing that was thrown in at the end for you to experience, but you haven't had enough built up to actually feel that moment.
It's kind of weightless.
They could have expounded more for sure, like draw in on that nihilistic aspect. Like she's already given into it, even though it destroyed her originally. This is just how things are, where Blade is supposed to be the force of hope, fighting and struggling for the moral good. Like they kind of had that opportunity and didn't take it.
Right.
Yeah, I've also thought that it's just kind of an erroneous thing that a lot of movies do to, whenever they're taking from a certain source material, they're thinking, okay, let's automatically go with the biggest bad in this series and do that for the first movie. And we'll probably make some money off that. And I just don't like that because in every story, there are plenty of other villains that you can start out with, especially comic books.
I feel like MCU does that well.
Yeah, MCU does that really well. They finally realized, and that's probably where they decided, oh, okay, now I can, you know...
I think the idea is there's some uncertainty in when you're making a film that, like, what if this isn't successful and we don't get to put our true vision out because it's not successful? It's like we might as well go for it.
Yeah.
You know, so I get it. And this is especially when comic books were they weren't a viable property.
Well, here's the thing, though. Because of it being a comic book, you're not expecting big rewards from everyone because it's not well known. That's why you have kind of that freedom to do whichever story in there you want to. You know?
Exactly why they picked the biggest, best one.
Yeah, but it's not. But when you can't do it,
think about it. You're releasing a rated R movie based off a comic book, which none have really been successful, at least in the Marvel side. There's been
not
successful
to mention,
DC.
like sequels in general weren't really
right.
They were a thing, but the phenomenon that especially Marvel has done now with the sagas and the multi-part, overall stories, that wasn't a thing. And if I remember correctly, in the late 90s, like sequels were really not looked upon as something necessary or desirable is just a cash-in kind of opportunity. So, like Reese is saying, you got to put your best foot forward to get, what you can get right away.
Yeah.
And that's fair, but if you're thinking about the future and trying to do, like, okay, maybe we should plan for a future installment, what are you going to do after that if you've already done the main one, If you already have that plan in mind to go ahead with the franchise, it's a little bit weird to do the biggest one first.
I think we've established why they did it the way that they did.
Yeah.
It's
the mindset of having a plan for doing more wasn't mainstream.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
It's just kind of sad because I'm now thinking about this from a perspective of if you had read the comics and knowing Deacon Frost is probably a lot more imposing in there than he is here.
All right, Irina, you told me when we were talking earlier about this that Deacon Frost is like the main villain of villains.
Yeah, that's right? What I mentioned before. It's kind of like he's supposed to be the main antagonist for Blade's character.
And what were the other antagonists?
Oh, like Dracula and Morbius and things like
only
that.
Dracula.
Just Dracula.
Yeah, so, but imagine putting Dracula in this. You'd be like, okay, I think that's a level of cheese that this wasn't willing to go.
You could definitely do Morbius, though.
Yeah, Morbius would have been cool.
I think the director was actually cameoed as Morbius in this movie before it was cut out.
Oh, that would have been cool.
That'd be interesting.
Hey, Morbius, there you go. That would be another, that would be. That's your sequel right there, or your third movie. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe not your sequel.
Yeah. We'll see. To be
continued.
But we got to that point where they do the ritual, right?
Yeah, I do want to. This sequence features a lot of my favorite, I guess, vampire gadgets. Just the way that he injects these vampires with holy garlic water or something.
Yeah. Some kind of garlic concentrate.
Garlic water.
Yeah, the way that they bubble up and explode is so cool. I thought it was really well done.
I think that's the EDTA anticoagulant that Karen developed.
Yeah.
Okay, yes, the anticoagulant.
She's smart.
Yeah. I just really like that hallway scene where he takes those two guys out. It's a very well choreographed scene, and it ends in two vampires bubbling up and exploding in a very satisfying way.
Yeah, and they were the ones that kind of got him when they took advantage of him with that kid earlier, too.
Yeah, and that's also ultimately how Frost goes down, with one straight to the head. But let's talk about the ritual real quick. What do we think of this final sequence, which was apparently completely redone from the original idea that was cut out, which was to have some sort of blood tornado or something.
That would have been oh my gosh.
Yeah, I'm glad they did it this way.
Better.
Yeah, apparently the CGI was really dodgy for it, and they were like, let's dial it back.
It's still a little dodgy. Like, some of the blood simulation is not, it's obvious it's fake, but at least it isn't a blood tornado. That would have been.
So what is this sort of ritual thing supposed to do?
To make Frost a
Lamagra. They're summoning Lamagra.
But they're trying to make that guy
already
a daywalker
two different things.
But the thing is, the point of the ritual is you're summoning the blood god, and the guy who receives it, in this case Frost, embodies that power or takes on that power.
Yeah.
I like it, but then that's so only one person can do this, right?
Well, he had to have all of the emissaries or whatever they were.
Hold on. Did I just misunderstand the whole movie? I thought that they were trying to get it so that the vampires could walk during the day.
See, yeah, exactly. That's what I am trying to clarify, because that's what I thought they were setting up the whole movie.
And I thought that they had to use the blood god's power in order to imbue them with the
But only one person apparently gets it.
Well, yeah, I think maybe you have to do that.
It came across to me as
I don't know.
sort of like a possession thing. Like, he took the spirit of the blood god into himself and then would have the ability to give that power, I guess.
That's possible.
Yeah, it was a little unclear, but that does make sense.
But he wanted to rid them of, the vampire elite, basically, and then take over for himself.
They could have definitely explained that. But they also needed the elite vampires for the ritual, it looked like, because they had to have, the blood drop onto their foreheads.
Yeah.
And,
I think...
As far as, ultimate goal, I think he might have been saying, walking during the day is, an ultimate goal for elevation in general. And this being a catalyst point for that. I don't know if that was directly, that was more the second movie. But, I mean, Deacon Frost is obviously looking out for himself and using excuses of elevating the race as, kind of means to his own end. And so
that's
he's
what I
probably,
got too.
Exaggerating a bit. But
Yeah.
I thought it was mostly a selfish pursuit
Yeah.
on his part, and maybe he was telling people white lies about what was going to actually happen.
Oh, definitely. But I imagine that it still was probably the truth. Like, oh yeah, by the way, I could totally make y'all walk during the day. I think it suits his needs for them to be able to walk during the day.
He never seemed like a team player, did he?
Well, he's not unless it helps him.
I guess that's what I mean.
Ooh, sidebar. Did y'all see that scene where Blade rips out a guy's esophagus and throws it at another guy?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Good. Yeah.
So
Okay,
good.
there's definitely some.
yeah.
Sorry, I
Go
didn't
ahead.
mean to keep
No,
trying.
you're good.
It definitely in all of these movies that I've seen so far are heavily Mortal Kombat-y deaths.
Yes.
Like every time, fatality. Just there's so many unique ways they kill people in these movies.
Blade would make such a great Mortal Kombat
Oh yeah,
character.
he would. He would
favorite-
fit right in.
Moments in these movies are just he gets captured and he's down and then he does his thing and he's back up again and then he gets his sunglasses, puts them on, and then the music starts. He just busts a move on everybody.
Yeah. I actually really liked this finale, even though they apparently had issues behind the scenes on it. I do think it's wrapped up a little too quickly. Like, it's a little like, okay, they took care of everyone. It seemed like pretty much a cinch. Even Frost's battle is like a little too quick.
Yeah.
I do like that initial scene when he cuts him in half and then the blood like doesn't fully like it whips back and he's like, oh, I'm good.
This movie has a lot of there are a lot of little scenes that keep popping into my head while we're talking about this, and I think there are little moments that I just feel are gold, and one of them is when Karen is thrown down that chute and discovers her
Webb?
her
Whatever his name is.
yeah, that guy, and just that moment is probably the most horrific moment in this movie for me, because that actually legitimately seems like something out of a horror film where I'll just be like, get me out of here.
And doesn't he say the same line he did to her at the beginning?
It's
He's like, don't you think we should give this another chance?
Do you ever think what would have happened if we were to something like that?
Meanwhile, Karen's like, nope.
It's sort of like an echo of his former self, kind of zombie-like and
vampire.
Yeah,
Like he's a zombie vampire.
Horrible. I hate that guy.
While it did, it did wrap up in a cinch and was like, it felt like this is what was going to happen. It was inevitable. You still did feel like Blade was kind of down and out when he was tied up in that stone sacrifice thing. And like, you kind of really felt like, yeah, he's definitely subdued. This is his low point. And Karen, comes and rescues him. And I felt the tension at least.
Yeah.
And you get your obligatory scene of a vampire almost drinking too much blood, where they're like,
I was wondering if that's going to stop it. Stop it. Stop drinking.
Drinking too much blood and then getting into the sexual nature of that blood transfusion there for a moment.
Maybe I've watched too much anime, but I wanted to see him come up from that ultimate blood sucking and have glowing eyes and just go full next level
berserk mode. I can see Noah's like, no,
kind of
you cannot watch too much anime.
In midair.
Corn plays in the background.
Yeah, so the Frost is killed. It's a pretty awesome blood explosion. I do want to call out that moment when Frost re-heals himself. Oh yeah. And we get one of the best Blade moments where he turns around and you know what he's saying, but it's inaudible.
Yeah.
He's like, what the
Yes.
You see him mouth the words.
Yeah.
And little did you know, he was just cringing at the CG.
Yeah.
He's watching the CG in real time. He's like, no.
I actually think the only inexcusable CG is when those spirits come out of all of the things' bodies.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, that looks not good.
I don't know. I thought that looked weird, and I also thought his body reforming was also weird.
It was not great, but I was like, I can live with this.
Look, there's a lot of movies that do way worse, and I feel like I hold CGI to that's one of my main critiques in a lot of movies. But
Which
this one
shouldn't be.
I know it shouldn't be, but this one didn't bother me. I feel like they did a good job with what they had.
The reason it doesn't bother you as much is because it definitely feels stylistically like an older film.
Well, and it's few and far between.
It's consistent with the aesthetic too. I think that's the thing. There are some movies where the use of CGI just completely throws you out of the film. This one doesn't. You just accept it.
It's not like egregiously bad, like say a Mortal Kombat when they tried to do Reptile.
Oh gosh.
Or even Mummy Returns. I think
oh man.
Mummy Returns has some good effects, but there's some that are just like...
What, are you thinking at the end when they have the, like the pyramid where everything gets sucked into it?
It's just bad. Yeah,
that was one of the worst CGI.
Yeah, I was thinking.
The Yetis were not that bad.
Wait, that wasn't Mummy Returns.
Yeah.
Wait, what was that?
Guys, we do this at the end of the podcast or the beginning. We don't do it in the middle.
It sounds like a film that deserves a 7, though.
Yeah.
I think
someone in our group did give Mummy Tomb of the Dragon Emperor a 7. Who was that?
Not me. That's for sure.
Oh, it was you, David. Just to catch up all our audience members, David did, in fact, give Mummy Tomb of the Dragon Emperor a 7 out of 10. He said it was very enjoyable. Every frame of the movie was postcard worthy, and it's very rewatchable.
Look, I'm just going to say, when's the last time you watched it, Reese?
It has been a long time.
It's been over a year.
That should say
Wait, David, so you said back at that time is really, really rewatchable. How many times have you seen it since?
I'm just saying we should watch it again and see how we feel.
Wow, nice recovery.
That's all I'm going to say.
All right.
Maybe we will. All right, let's wrap up the story. We've only got a brief little kind of epilogue here. Karen offers to help Blade cure himself, but he asks her to create a new serum he can sustain on instead, as he intends to continue his crusade against vampires. In a brief epilogue, Blade confronts a vampire in Moscow. Okay.
All right.
This ending scene, the tease of a new adventure in Moscow is so cool.
I know.
But do we get that?
No.
Well, we get something. It's like, I think some villains are in Eastern Europe.
Okay, but still.
It's not exactly right.
No.
I actually really liked the closing moment of this. It's just like, yes.
Yeah, it was hype.
It did not feel necessarily like we were going to get a sequel. I was actually really happy with just how it closed out.
It was a great way to close out this movie on, maybe he's going to go do this elsewhere now. And what does this other country have going on in terms of a vampire infestation?
Yeah, it's definitely a good closeout saying kind of the story continues.
Yes.
In
the same way kind of that Interview with the Vampire did.
Yeah, exactly.
But
no, it's almost that exact same sentiment. Yeah. But they did have a sequel.
Yeah.
And they didn't even touch on how they ended it, which is somewhat unfortunate.
Yeah, the sequel, which we'll get to, kind of abandons a lot of what was intended with the first one. But that's not to say that it's not good.
Yeah,
but we'll get it. That's irrelevant right now. Mm-hmm. All right. Any closing comments on the story before we move on to the next section?
Nope.
Blood.
All right, we're going to take a brief break, and on the other side, we're going to talk about this franchise and how Blade has affected the franchise as a whole. All right, so stay tuned. And we're back. Let's talk about Blade. Hey, nice.
Yeah, exact same way, exact same time.
David, you got our scores in a bowl.
I might
pull those review scores at random.
All right, first score. Let's see. Is Irina with an 8?
Me first.
All right.
Yeah. All right. So I think a majority of this film is positive, and for me, it withstands the test of time, and I still enjoy it now, and will probably watch it many more times in the future. I think the only things about it that I don't make it a perfect 10 are we've talked about the kind of throwing in of the mother being in the picture, but not really having a significant moment with her, and it sort of diminishes this the death of Whistler, and that was kind of poorly tied together. There are a lot of moments in this where it's a little confusing as to what the overall plot is for this villain. It makes sense, but in sort of a loose way. Yeah, I think that it's still a solid 8, and I don't think I'm going to change that.
All right.
Next up, Noah with a 6.
Yeah. I might bump that up maybe a single point. So I'll stick it at a 7 just because of how crazy good Wesley Snipes is.
Mm-hmm. He's pretty good.
I think tonally this movie is great. They stuck with the mood that you really like for this world. You like all the kind of characters that they introduce and the whole vibe they're going for. But in particular, Blade himself is just absolutely the best part of this movie. Just anytime you see him in action with his nature is the movie feels really alive, which is ironic because there's a lot of death in this.
Yeah, any scene he's not in feels like it's missing something.
Yeah, exactly. The main reason I dock the points is probably just because I think they could have done the villain a little bit better. Like Irina said as well, the mom kind of popping in there randomly and not really driving the story in any direction with that just seems like a bad decision. And then lastly, I know you guys didn't have too much of an issue with this, but CG slightly takes me out of it sometimes.
Okay.
And it's not the worst thing I've ever seen, and it fits with the tone of the movie pretty well, but sometimes it's still, well, that's CG,
Yeah.
And so, 7.
All right. 7.
Next up, Reese with a 7.5.
Oh.
Yeah, this is the best Blade movie. Ooh.
Have you even seen
okay.
Trinity?
No, actually, I haven't seen Trinity.
Then you get off of that horse.
But as of this
After
viewing,
this first viewing of the first movie, I'm giving this the best score.
No, there's something about this movie that, really taps into what I like about, Wesley Snipes and vampire movies in general. For one, I think the action is totally on point, and there's a lot of it. Maybe the only thing it could have used was a awesome car chase with that Charger.
And Kate Beckinsale.
Yeah.
Throw in Kate Beckinsale, and this movie's a 10.
No, this guy's got the coolest car. I want to see, like, a chase.
68 Chargers, love it.
Throw Dom in here from Fast and Furious, and we got a movie.
Yeah, hey, he's in one of the guys from Fast and Furious in the second one.
It's true.
So, but yeah, Wesley Snipes just oozes charisma, and he's just a total physical presence that cannot be denied. He totally spearheads this movie, and this would not be nearly what it is without him. Apart from that, detractors, I think Steven Dorff is fine, but he's not like the imposing villain that I kind of wanted to go toe-to-toe against Blade. But other than that, like, I don't have a lot of issues with this movie. There's some CGI, wriggles here and there that I didn't particularly care for. But
so you're saying that 7.5 for this movie is the best that any of these 3 movies are going to get?
Who knows? Maybe. Oh, I did want to, again, to the action. This is something that the second one that I doesn't do as well. It does other things better. I don't mean to go ahead and talk about the second one. But this one, the action has a weight to it. Like when Blade hits somebody with something, they go down. Yeah. It's not like this.
You feel that punch.
Yeah, it's not like death by 1,000 cuts. It's death by one cut. And I really
almost like a One Punch Man.
Yeah, and I really like that, down and dirty fighting style that he has, as opposed to the more kung fu style in the second one.
I'll fight you on that one.
I know you will, but this one to me it felt like, kind of like The Punisher mixed with a vampire movie. And
I could see that.
Yeah, I really like that. It just felt more down and dirty.
I feel like it, and not to fight you back and forth on this, but I feel like this movie didn't throw as many villains that knew how to fight. I feel like they just threw some cronies at him, and he was just so strong.
That's all I want to see. I want to see Blade punch cronies in the face, and they go down in one hit, because that's the type of crony that they are.
That is a comic book thing.
If you get punched by Wesley Snipes, you stay down.
I did notice during this movie and the next one a couple of scenes in which, you're looking at about 4 or 5 people, and you see them kind of just like one guy standing right next to him, just like, all right,
waiting for
Go
my
ahead.
turn.
And go.
They quickly get completely obliterated. It's like, all right, I'll go now. My turn.
Yeah. So I stay with my 7.5. I docket points for, again, the kind of mom subplot that kind of just feels weirdly inserted in there, and the weaker villain that I didn't feel like completely fulfilled, that role. But overall, I was very impressed with the first Blade, and I'm glad I finally watched it. So,
All right.
next one.
Next score. AJ with an 8.
All right.
Yay.
So, like I mentioned earlier, this movie just has a style that resonates with me. It's, from the music, the aesthetics of the world, character design, costumes, everything. It clicks, and I don't really find any flaws with it. You got, the cool 68 Charger. A lot of it just speaks to me. And, I wanted a little bit more, like Reese said, could have had a car chase scene. That would have been awesome. Trying to organize my thoughts without repeating everyone else.
I know,
But
it's
I'll
hard.
echo Irina here, and I agree with Reese where, I do like the weight. His technique and the martial arts are just consummate. Like the talent is what really brings this movie about. And again, I'll liken it to John Wick, and John Wick is a masterpiece in what it does. And this is just kind of a precursor to that, where we see realistic martial arts by an expert in it, and it comes onto the field, or the screen here rather, and it shows, and it portrays Blade as a juggernaut going into and just owning, his task and his mission, and that's enjoyable to see, and especially when you have this polished, really engaging setting that speaks to me stylistically. Again, Deacon Frost is, in my opinion, a good villain. He could have been more for sure, especially with how he's not supported well by the Council of the Vampires and everything else. And then Donald Logue's character was kind of a little goofy, and that's the 90s speaking, I feel like. But I've seen him in other stuff, and I like his acting. I think that was just kind of how he was written. But yeah, stylistically, this movie carries it, and I think Blade and Wesley Snipes, he pulls from like 12 different disciplines of martial arts, and you see examples of everything. And CG didn't bother me as much as, maybe some others. And, this movie does not feel like it's 22 years old, a pre-2000s movie. It holds up well.
Definitely.
So, and maybe it's just because I saw it when I was young and I was really, I don't know. It's the style that speaks to me most of all.
Yeah.
And we could have definitely had more character development. We get a little bit of taste of it that wasn't really tapped into fully. But yeah. Blade is definitely a considerable character, and especially when you frame it in the context of a comic book movie, which actually a lot of people I talk to about this movie don't realize. And I think that's where there's a little bit of maybe miscommunication. The framing of that movie really helps, in my opinion. Sorry,
right.
Hopefully that was coherent, but
Yeah, it was coherent. You're good. Don't worry. Give us the last score.
All right, last but not least, we have David, me, with a 7. You like the way I did that?
Speaking in your third person.
I'm trying to bring it to a first person.
No, I do not want to change you. You keep doing
I'm
your
going to be
thing.
me. And David gives this a 7. I think this, out of all the Blade movies we've covered so far, is the weakest link. Out of all the ones we've covered.
All 2.
All
Including
0.
Blade
All
Runner.
0.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think that this is a very strong movie. I remember seeing this on the background a lot of times, and I didn't know how I was going to feel about it. And I got really big into the Marvel TV show universe back in probably 2015, 2016, when it started getting big. Luke Cage, Jessica Jones, Daredevil. I really think that this fits right into that world. I now want a TV show of this. And I think Wesley Snipes, he embodies this character. He's exactly what I want out of a half human, half vampire hunter. I think that he oozes charisma. We've all talked about that. I think that this movie has its issues with, in my opinion, there is some pacing at times that it could have worked on. CGI is fine for its time, but in the end, it is a strong intro to this world.
Yeah.
I like the society that they build. It feels very real. And I think moving forward, I look forward to the connections that Blade has with Chris Christopherson, and I don't know. I just really enjoyed it.
He's dead in this.
Yeah, Reese already ruined that, so I think I'm okay.
Yeah, but I don't know if that's getting edited out.
It might, but all right. Sorry, you can edit mine out too, Reese, just in case.
The whole review?
The whole thing. Yeah, just get rid of me. I'm not even on this podcast.
No, you're fine.
But yeah, in the end, I think that this is a strong movie, but it just, I think that sometimes it lost my full attention. I think that it could have done certain scenes better. The fighting in this movie was good, but I'm not going to, show too much, but I know that it gets better. And in the end,
I'll fight you on that.
Oh, we'll fight, and I'm going to have more choreography behind me.
And I'll have heavier punches.
No, we're just going to hit fists together, and then it's going to have a shockwave, and nothing happens.
Did you just say y'all are going to together?
Wait, okay, you know what? Yes, that's exactly what we're going to do. That's exactly right.
So what was your score again?
I give it a 7.
And what did you give?
No, we've done it already. We're not... I'm reserving you guys to one Dragon Emperor reference.
I'm reserving you guys.
to a one Dragon Emperor reference, a podcast now.
Hey, you said
done.
It, not me.
All right, AJ, you want to crunch those numbers for us on Blade?
All right, so we have an average of 7.5,
All right.
and that puts it below Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe at a 7.6, and above Prince Caspian at a 7.4.
Not bad.
Hey,
and it's pretty squarely in the pack of all of our movies we've covered. We're pretty heavy on our 7s and high 6s.
Yeah.
So.
All right.
Yeah, that's kind of where the dominant movies fall.
I'm happy with that 7.5 because that's exactly what I scored the movie.
Yeah.
Yep.
This is right.
I'm right. Validated.
Done.
Hey, but we're 7, bros.
Well, we'll see how we compare to audiences and critics.
Yeah, so let's move on to the critics here. On Rotten Tomatoes, this movie has a 55% with an audience score of 75%. So critics were mixed to almost positive. It's still in that kind of rotten range. Audience score, though, is positive with a 75%. On Metacritic, this has a 45, which is in the mixed range, but a little towards the lower end. But the audience score balances that out with an 8.7. And on IMDb, this movie has a 7.1, which is positive. So, there you go.
All right, a little positive then.
Yeah, I would say mixed to mildly positive if you average it all out. I think if you factor in this movie's kind of cult following, it's more on the positive end. Blade 1 and Blade 2, I feel like, have pretty big followings and fans. So, there you go. Let's get into the box office. This movie released on August 21st in 1998. Has a budget of $45 million. And so yeah, what do y'all think this movie did? Noah, worldwide.
180.
180? Yeah. Okay. AJ.
Ooh, pre-millennium numbers. Let's see. In August.
Yeah, it's hard.
You said budget 45 million. Let's more than double it. Let's say 100.
100? Irina?
135.
All right. David?
All right, let's say 150.
Irina, you almost got it on the nose there.
What?
It has 131 million, so
Okay.
you're only 4 million off.
Nice.
I got to say, we're getting pretty good at this. I
Yeah.
think we're learning your methods, Reese.
I'm
Yeah,
just
just forget
guessing
about my
every time.
180.
I'll get
Yeah.
it right.
I don't know if they're
Honestly,
Reese's
180 's
methods.
not
This is
bad.
just how
Fair enough.
Yeah.
how it is.
Exactly. So yeah, the movie did 131 million worldwide. 70 million of that was domestic, and that was off of a 17 million opening weekend. It played against 2 new releases that I've never heard of, called Dead Man on Campus and Dance With Me.
Whatever that
Does
is.
it ring a bell for anyone?
Gonna have to watch those.
Yeah.
And the Avengers.
Yeah. It was also playing against the 5th week of Saving Private Ryan and the 6th week of There's Something About Mary, which were both big films that had long legs. So they were still a significant box office presence. But yeah, this movie, number 1 at the box office, made a pretty big impression. And against, its 17 million opening, made it to 70 million domestic, which means it also had, pretty substantial legs. I think people were pretty entertained by Blade when it first came out. So it's no surprise that we got a Blade 2 4 years later, which is actually a little longer than I thought it would take to make a sequel.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
there you go. 4 years later. Honestly, after watching this and League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, I think this director, Stephen Norrington, he showed a lot of potential on this movie that I feel like is kind of squandered in the next movie. And I want to say that's because of just, production problems and, reshoots and cuts and all that. But, I would have liked to see where he took the second film in this. I'm kind of, as much as I love Guillermo del Toro, I feel like I would have liked to see Stephen Norrington's version too.
Is there a reason that he didn't do the second one?
I didn't look into that, so
I guess we'll talk about it in the next one. But I gotta say, Guillermo del Toro is definitely a director you don't have to worry as much about. So I can't imagine he ruined it too much for you.
Yeah. If I had to guess, I would say he was, given the opportunity to do League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, which came out not too long after this. I would think that was a 2003 movie, so 5 years after this. So it was probably just multiple projects. He decided to do League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, or maybe he had a bad experience on Blade because of the reshoots of the final scene. Maybe he just decided to part ways with that. He doesn't have a lot of luck with
we
production.
might talk about it.
Yeah. Or will we? Who knows?
I don't know.
So yeah, next week, obviously we're talking about Blade 2. We all know that movie exists. So yeah, until then, do y'all have any closing remarks on Blade?
How'd you have liked to see Mark Wahlberg as Deacon Frost?
Hey, I'd watch that.
Marky Mark.
I feel like it would still be the wrong vibe though. He's too
Marky Mark.
I wish I was good.
Mark.
I wish I was good at Mark Wahlberg impressions, but I'm not. I would have.
You mean a Boston accent, man? Yo, he'd come in here and he went doing it, man. I don't know. No, take that out. Take it out. No, take it out.
I am leaving that.
You just sound.
Cut it out.
You just sound really.
I can't do Boston.
Stupid.
I can't do Boston. If you can do Boston accent, you can do Marky Mark. I cannot.
Yeah, send in your Boston accents.
Oh gosh.
All right, next week, Blade 2. Goodbye, guys.
How do you think we fund this organization, huh? We're not exactly the March of Dimes.